Hello, my name is Chris Betts. I'm a senior systems engineer with VMware working on the federal end user computing team. And what I'd like to do for you today is discuss the DoD Visitor program and how to configure Horizon View and a PC over IP endpoint just to collaboratively work together and enable the DoD Visitor program on a VDI instance. If you're not familiar with what DoD Visitor is, it was a joint DoD or a joint effort that included the DoD CIO, the Joint Staff, DISA, the NSA, and the DMDC to provide an enterprise end user experience. So just to give a quick example of what I'm talking about, essentially if I were an Army user with an Army issued CAC card and I decided to visit an Air Force installation for the day, and I show up and I need a desktop to log into, I can take my Army CAC card and log into an Air Force domain space, and with the DoD Visitor program create a temporary account that will allow me to work at that installation throughout the course of the day. The goal of this video is to show you all the different components required to make this work. Now, I'm not going to go into standing up Active Directory or how to install and configure Horizon View, nor am I going to go into the installation steps for the DoD Visitor program, but just really want to focus on the configuration components that make all this work. So without further ado, let's start stepping through some of these components. So let's look at the versions of everything we're running. So if we look at my domain controller and the domain functional level, we're running Windows Server 2008 R2. If we look at the version of DoD Visitor installed, you can see here that we have 1.3.8. Horizon View, we are running a version of 6.0.1. And some of the other components we also have included in this configuration is a Teradici PC over IP endpoint, which is running firmware version 4.7.1. And if we look at some of the components tied to this, more specifically a CAC card, we are running an SCR X31 USB smart card reader attached to this Zero client. Next, let's take a look at some of the Active Directory components required to make all of this work. So first I'm going to open up Active Directory users and computers. And while I'm here, I'll go ahead and open up my group policy management console as well. Now you can see here I have a OU structure with DoD Visitor and a sub OU called Groups with a group security group called DoD Visitor VDI. Next we have an OU with service accounts with just one service account called DoD User that's a member of the security group I just mentioned. And next we have an OU called Users. The purpose of this OU is for when the DoD Visitor program creates accounts, it populates it with that. And then last but not least, we have an OU called VDI that has our VDI desktops. Now if we switch over to GPMC, you can see the same exact OU structure. And if we look at the VDI OU, we can see a DoD Visitor GPO, which is provided by the DoD Visitor program, and a PC over IP GPO that I use for PC over IP optimization. Next, let's open up DoD Visitor, and we can see here the NIC it's listening on, the domain we're listening on, the OU that we will provision accounts into from DoD Visitor, and the groups the DoD Visitor program adds that user to. And we can also set an account age. Alright, let's open up our View Admin Console. And I'll show you that we have this DoD Visitor pool with this unique ID, DoD Visitor. I have two DoD Visitor VDI instances. And if we look at the entitlements, I have the DoD Visitor VDI group entitled to this desktop. And currently no logged in sessions to this desktop pool. Next, we're going to look at the PC over IP management console, and I just wanted to show how you would do this from a profile perspective. So here I can edit a profile, in this case DoD Visitor testing. If I expand out session configuration, edit properties, and enable the session connection type, go ahead and select view connection server, and then I would ultimately put in an address here to the connection broker. And if I scroll all the way down, you can see how it enabled some options for me. And if I enable the self-help link mode and enable that, it gives me a bunch of options here that we are going to configure on the client directly. I just wanted to show you how you could do this from a profile perspective to apply to all your endpoints. So if we look at the endpoint by itself and go to its session configuration and show the advanced options, scroll down here, you can see I already have the enable self-help link enabled. So I have my connection server that I'm pointed to. I have the username DoD user, which is the service account I showed in AD earlier, the domain that I am going to log into, the desktop name I'm going to select. This has to match the unique ID in your view pool, and then the text I want to display on the endpoint when users use this. So to show you this not enabled, if I try to log in here, you can see that there's no text displayed down here at the bottom right. Now if I have the self-help link enabled, you can see that it does display some text down here. As you can see, this matches the DoD Visitor desktop syntax that I had in the configuration setting. So just to recap on some of this stuff, I have my OU structure with my OU group. In here I have the DoD Visitor VDI group, and it is associated with this entitlement to the DoD Visitor desktop pool. Next we have the service account, DoD user, and we associate this in the session area here for username. It's the service account we're going to use. Again, the user's OU that DoD Visitor provisions accounts into, and then my two desktops that reside in the VDI OU. If we switch over to GPMC real fast, one setting that I didn't highlight is that in my DoD Visitor GPO, I have single sign-on disabled, and I'll demo that later. Let's review a quick process flow. So first we have the user accesses 0 client. They select the DoD Visitor self-help link, which the DoD user service account will attempt a single sign-on, but because it's disabled, it'll just simply present the user with a login screen. So at that point, the user inputs their smart card and PIN, the login will fail, the DoD Visitor program creates the account, assigns it to the necessary security groups, and ultimately is entitled to the DoD Visitor view pool. And then the user will try to log in again. Because the user is entitled to the DoD Visitor pool now, the user will successfully log in. So let's show a quick demo. So first, user is going to select the DoD self-help link, and it's going to attempt a single sign-on, and you can see the SSO is disabled, so it doesn't. I'm now going to insert my CAC card, and it's going to read the smart card, and I'm going to input my PIN. And the very first time I try to log in, this will fail. That's by design with the DoD Visitor program. On the domain controller, the DoD Visitor program looks for this failure, and that's what triggers it to create the account and place it in that user's OU that I explained earlier. So now that it's failed and created the account, I'm going to try to log in again. And as long as everything has worked correctly, it should just simply log me in. And if we take a look in the background here and open up the user's OU, we can see here that it created an account for me. And we can also see here, if I refresh this, that it has logged me into the second instance of the DoD desktop. And let's flip back here, see if it's still logging me in. You can see here it's preparing my desktop and ultimately logs me in. And you'll have to forgive me for the video here, taking a video of the monitor. I did try to find a PC over IP emulator. Wasn't successful in obtaining one, but as soon as I do, I'll re-record this and add those in there. And that concludes our video of how to configure DoD Visitor program with Horizon View, a PC over IP endpoint, and providing some configuration settings in Active Directory. Thanks and have a great day.